So, welcome all to day 2 of our WeGate Training Academy, where many more wonderful and insightful topics awaits for us. For those of you who perhaps missed day 1, my name is Ratka Jurkovic, and I will be your designated moderator. Our morning today is designated to the important entrepreneurial topic, of course, of access to finance and funding opportunities, which will be presented to us by Ms. Ana Maria Magri Pantea. First session starts and lasts from circa 10 to 11:45. We will also have a 15-minute coffee break in between. But let me now first introduce our trainer. Ana Maria Magri Pantea is the founder and managing consultant of Ascend Consulting, an economist with specialization in finance and holder of a master's in business administration. She has 20 years of experience in entrepreneurship, innovation, and business development support, as well as access to impact finance through grants, credit, and equity investments. Her experience covers EU projects and programs structuring, their management, evaluation for funding decisions, and monitoring of effective implementations. So, Ana Maria, the virtual floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ratka. Welcome to my office virtually to everyone. And presentation with you so that we kickstart the ball. Are you seeing my slide? My first slide? I'm not seeing everyone, so maybe Ratka, no, okay, I'm seeing you. I'm just, because I'm not seeing if you give me a sign of okay or not. Let me just reorganize a bit my screen here. Excellent. Now I'm fine, ready. Everyone, this morning, the session that we will have together is focused on funding opportunities for two types of very interrelated audiences. On one side, funding opportunities for women entrepreneurs, and on the other side, funding opportunities for those organizations supporting women entrepreneurs. Now, as I will take you today through the various, options out there, you will see that there might be some overlap into some areas, but otherwise we will go through all of them in an as structured as possible manner, because I very much I'm aware that is a very complex area. It's a maze, this area of funding. And I always believe that the best way to navigate yourself through it is almost a bit like a map. You need to know what are the different sectors, where to look for, and so on. So I'll be trying to be as structured as possible in the options out there. But let me start by giving you a bit more insight about myself. Ratka, very much appreciate your introduction, and I would just want to add a couple of things to just make my background a bit more sort of specific. So one of the key things that I always say that is maybe particular about me is that I would say I speak European, and I speak European because of a number of aspects. First of all, I'm Romanian originally, so I come from Eastern Europe, but for the last 15 years, 17 actually, I have been living and working from Malta, in Malta, and working across Europe. I have also worked in Hungary for about 2 years, and all this work that I have been carrying out has been very much centered around access to finance, particularly access to EU-supported funding for entrepreneurs, particularly for innovative entrepreneurs. And supporting their go-to-market process, their starting of the business, or their development projects, including at an international level. And I have been doing this in different roles, from having worked as the International Relations Officer of the Chamber of Commerce in Romania, to having worked as the national contact point in Malta for one of the main funding programs that started specifically supporting innovation, and this was the Competitiveness and Innovation Program back in 2007. Afterwards, working directly as a staff member of the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, and afterwards, after I kept on, promoting and sort of evangelizing entrepreneurship, I said I will walk the talk, and I have set up my own consulting practice in the area of business advisory and management consulting, being Ascend Consulting. And in this role, I continued to work with EU bodies, with national bodies that are supporting entrepreneurship and innovation, and have been doing work in different roles under different funding programs as an expert, as a coach, as a mentor, as an evaluator, as a reviewer, or otherwise I've been working on the other side of the applicants, and hence supporting them in this application process. So this is a bit more from my end. Now, I want us to jump straight into our training session, and I would very much want to start by taking a bit of stock of the information and the experience that you have up to now in terms of funding support opportunities. So I want to invite you to go, not yet, let me just sort of set the scene here. I want to invite you to reply to two questions that I have set up into menti.com. And the very first question is about what funding support opportunities are you aware of for women entrepreneurs? So something that directly the women entrepreneurs can apply for in terms of funding opportunities. Just, you have the option of giving three answers there. Answer what comes to your mind. It might be the type of funding, or might be a specific instrument or scheme that you are aware of. And then there will be another question that is focused on funding opportunities for the organizations that support women entrepreneurs. Okay, so I am going to switch now my screen towards Menti, so that you will see the answers that are coming also from your end. But meanwhile, please do follow, go either on your laptop or otherwise on your mobile, maybe even easier. Go to www.menti.com and use that code 44603720, and you will be able to answer the first question. I will give 1 minute and a half maximum for answers from your end to come. We will all see them coming, and then I will switch the slide to the next question, which will be much more targeted towards the support organizations and the representative of such support organizations that are amongst you. Okay, so let's go. Radka, I think you are going to post in the chat the link to menti.com.
Yes, it is already posted.
Excellent.
It is already posted. You can just click it.
Excellent. Meanwhile, I'm switching to Menti, and I'm waiting for your replies, ladies. So, what funding opportunities for women entrepreneurs are you aware of right now, before the training? If you have any issues, please mention, because I'm not seeing, okay, I'm starting to see something here coming in. No, I'm not seeing your answers. Okay, answers are coming. Excellent. So it's working. Just, anything that you are aware of. Could be type of funding or could be a very specific funding opportunity, like, this Erasmus that was mentioned by one of you. Try to focus on funding for women entrepreneurs. Are you seeing on the screen some stuff scribbled? Okay, business angels, crowdfunding, employment service aganek. This would be probably a very specific type of support scheme. Anything else? I will give some more time. Bank loans. Okay. Anything else? Sponsor. Okay. Enterprise Ireland. Agence Entre Féminine. Okay. Okay. Focus on opportunities for women entrepreneurs, so for very specific businesses. Circular economy. Okay, that's interesting. Any further feedback? Okay, I will switch the slide now. Okay, there was something else. Someone else wrote something. I'm trying to find it. Donations. Girls in tech. I will take note of a few points here. Girls in tech. Okay. Very good. Trade organizations. Very interesting. Okay. Unless you are going to type right now something else, in 5 seconds, I'm going to switch to the next question in Mentimeter. Yeah, if only I can go back. Yes, I can. Let's bear with the tools. Okay, something more came. EIC, womentech.eu, UN Women, SIDA, Female Support VCs, okay, venture capital, grants. Okay, good. Any further? Yes, they are coming. Horizon 2020. Cosme? None. Someone is very pessimistic. Probably someone that is not aware specifically. Good. We are going to discuss them further right now. Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's go back now to the presentation. And let's jump into what various forms are out there. Now, what the feedback that you provided clearly showed that you are aware of various types of funding opportunities, which is very good, is particularly relevant, and we can also see how many they are out there. So as I promised initially, I will try to group them and categorize them so that it's easier to navigate amongst them. So when we start talking about different forms of funding support, so different forms of financing and financial resources being provided to organizations, we can really categorize them according to, the kind of the extent of liquidity that they have. So there are grants, meaning money that you never have to give back again. There is equity, meaning a contribution to the share capital and the ownership of the company. There are debts or loans, so bank loans or commercial debt. So someone lending you for a particular period of time a certain amount of money, be it banks, be it other commercial partners, and they expect that to be received back. There can be the funding support can also take the form of guarantees, which means guarantees that you can use to get such bank loans or commercial credit, so that it gives a security to someone that provides the funding. And there are also other forms of funding support that are often provided, and this could take the form of in-kind assistance. So instead of providing you with really financial resources, money, the kind of services that you would need are being provided directly to you. Or another form of support could be tax credits. So you will get the possibility to reduce a part of your tax that will be due in next year or in the following years. All these are different forms of support, and they all should be used along the lifetime of an enterprise. Now, another form of categorization of the funding options are according to the specific beneficiary of such funding support. So the funding could be given directly to the business, meaning the legal entity that is being established. Could be funding given directly to the entrepreneur, so the woman entrepreneur that has founded, or the women entrepreneurs that have founded the business. Or, especially in our case, as we are discussing, there could be even support for the organizations that are supporting these women entrepreneurs. So there are different types of financial support. And obviously, as we were discussing earlier, always keep in mind that some of the forms of funding are refundable. You have to give them back in one form or another, later in time or sooner, depending on the profit that you generate or not. And others are non-refundable. No matter what happens, you do not really need to give them back unless you would have used, fraudulently or otherwise those resources. But they are intended to be given to you, and that's it. No one will ask for those money back. Now, those are the forms. When we are looking at the sources, who is providing this kind of funding opportunities, there are two main types here. There are the public sources and there are the private sources. Now, looking just at the public ones, we generally have a split here in terms of EU programs that are providing different forms of funding support. And these programs, some of them are centralized, and I will give you the specific examples of those, meaning they are really managed directly from Brussels, or they are managed across Europe in general. And then there are other EU programs and funding instruments that are decentralized, that they are allocated to specific countries. So you would have very specific funding programs dedicated to enterprises in Bulgaria, in North Macedonia, in Malta, where I'm from, in Italy, Spain, in Portugal, everywhere else across Europe, obviously, and member states or accession countries. And there are also, in this group of public sources, there are national programs, because it's not just EU money that are being used as incentives and levers to support entrepreneurship, but also public national funds. So not from the EU sources, but only directly from the country involved, that are through the budget of a particular country allocated and create specific national programs of support. And then there is the other set, which is private sources. And here we talk about financial investors. So these would be the ones that could give you either the equity or loans, or through crowdfunding platforms and so on. There are the corporate social responsibility programs of a number of organizations. And I think already you mentioned, for example, sponsors. Those would very much fit under this. So this would be those organizations that have a corporate social responsibility program and, for example, choose to focus on supporting women entrepreneurship. And there are also a number of other organizations that really devise philanthropic programs. So they will be NGOs, meaning non-governmental organizations, non-profit based, that their scope is really and truly just to support a particular objective, and in this case would be empowerment of women in the entrepreneurial space. Now, going one by one. Centralized funding programs. These are EU funding programs managed directly by the European Commission, be it based in Brussels, or sometimes there are other organizations, they are called managing authorities. They are these organizations that are managing these pools of money and programs. And some of these could be based somewhere else. For example, and I will give you some more details, the European Institute of Innovation and Technology that I have been working with almost 10 years ago, and they are based in Hungary, they are based in Budapest. There are other organizations based in different other places in across Europe. Majority are in Brussels, and they are really managing their programs across Europe. Then there are the decentralized funding programs, the European Union ones, in which you will have in each of your country, you would have a specific managing authority. And it's very important that you know which organization is in charge of these EU funds that are given just to your country, because you will then need to reach out to them and see exactly what opportunities are out there, for example, in Bulgaria or in Croatia or in Serbia or in Italy or in Malta, that are really, really specific for the women entrepreneurs or for entrepreneurs in general. And this is something that I really want to stress, that most of the time, you will see funding opportunities that are for entrepreneurship in general. There are relatively rare, especially public funding programs that as yet really dedicate and carve out very specific funding streams or funding pools only for women entrepreneurs. Generally, they are for entrepreneurs and anyone can apply, and sometimes they will have almost like an additional, sort of incentive for women. Maybe, when they are evaluated the applications, incentives are being given. And I'll give you some examples in this sense. Then the national funding programs, where you will have national authorities, very specific, again, similar. They could be similar to those other managing authorities of EU funds, or could be different. Now, an example in this sense, a bit earlier, someone at your end mentioned, for example, Enterprise Ireland. That would be often a national authority or a national organization involved in managing specific public funding, national funding, possibly not EU, but just, Irish funds given to enterprises. So those kind of organizations exist in each and every of our countries, and you should be aware of them because they typically manage this kind of funding opportunities. Now, very interesting, especially in the last, I would say, 10 years or so, has been this trend of increasing use of EU funding to leverage support from others. And in this sense, EU funding now starts being used to get other, sometimes larger and more capable organizations to get first a big chunk of money that in turn they will cascade down and give it further down to entrepreneurs, for example, and to businesses. So basically how it works, the EU would be giving, for example, a grant to an organization. It could be, I don't know, it could be, let me not give the example of Enterprise Ireland, but it could be a female support organization in a particular country, possibly different female support organization in a number of countries across EU working together. And these support organizations would then use the money received from the EU to provide sub-grants to split that big pot of money of a grant and provide smaller grants to the women entrepreneurs that they support. And besides those grants, they could further provide in-kind support, in-kind assistance. For example, like the kind of assistance that WeGate is providing to women entrepreneurs right now through this academy. So this is very much called Cascade funding, and I will be giving you some more information about them and including links where you can find specific details about different opportunities of Cascade funding. Another way in which EU funding is used to, get other organizations on board is to support financial intermediaries, and these could be banks or could be venture capital funds or could be business angel associations. And the EU funding is being given to these organizations almost like in equal part to their support to then give further to entrepreneurs. So the public funding ends up being given to banks or to venture capital funds or to business angels that in turn further put money from their own private pockets to provide then loans or invest in specific startups or growing businesses. Now, and I want you along the way, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box or raise your hand and we can address them. We will obviously have a dedicated Q&A session at the very end, but along the way, I would like, if you have any questions to please, jump in and let us know and we'll try to address them. And along the way, I will ask you, if you have been involved with particular funding opportunities that we will be discussing of, and I would like to hear your experience if you have. So, looking now at the centralized funding programs, the ones that come from Brussels. Here again, I'm trying to really break them down for you into those that are mainly for the entrepreneurs and enterprises. As I told you, few of these are really just for women entrepreneurs. Very few of them, and I will give you a couple of examples, but there are, maybe 5% of the whole pool, and some that are mainly for support organizations. And let me get them here over. So Horizon Europe, and I think at least some of you are aware because Horizon 2020, the predecessor program, was mentioned a bit earlier. There is another program, and it's called Creative Europe, and this is very much focused on audiovisual, cultural, creative industry-related activities, and has also funding streams for businesses in the creative space. There's another interesting program, and it's called Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. So it is an Erasmus that was mentioned again a bit earlier, but it's a particular type of Erasmus dedicated to young entrepreneurs, and I'll mention some more for you. There's the Enterprise Europe Network, which is another very interesting initiative that provides significant support for entrepreneurs, sometimes not directly financially, but a lot through in-kind assistance. But that actually replaces other services that you would need to get on the market and pay for them. And through Enterprise Europe Network, you can get this kind of support free of charge. Erasmus Plus, this is another program mainly for support organizations, and I will tell you a bit further why, because it's mainly focused on training and skills development. There are Interact programs that can be used by support organizations. There is the Single Market program, and there is the Digital Europe program. So this slide and this slide, you will have them available afterwards, are to help you really structure your understanding of the big landscape of funding instruments out there. Now, let's take the first one, and this is Horizon Europe. And someone, at least from your end, mentioned it a bit earlier, so I would love to hear some more from your end. But what I would like to highlight are some very specific opportunities here. One of the most well-known and very relevant for entrepreneurs is a program that right now it's called the European Innovation Council Accelerator. Here you will find the link to the page where you will have all further detail about it. So after this training, when you get the slides, you will be able to get to more details there. Basically, this program, maybe not exactly under this name, but it was under the SME instrument title, has been in operation now for 7 years, since 2014, and has been a very popular program. And this program is basically right now offering a mix of finance. So it's a blended finance, which consists of grant, non-reimbursable funding, and equity investment from investors that the EU will be bringing together on board. And this is being given to very innovative SMEs. This is very important. It is given only for more small and medium-sized enterprises, which does not necessarily mean just startups, but possibly smaller companies, but it can be also startups, but that are really highly innovative. And what this particular scheme is supporting is the development, the final steps of development of that innovation. It could be an innovative product, an innovative service, an innovative business model. And it's about the ultimate final steps of development, technical development and business development. Typically, it would be testing, validation, demonstration activities, and then some very final steps, or maybe regulatory approvals, standardization related activities that would get it ready to really start being commercialized. Now, this particular program is also nowadays, for the last 1 year, is starting to put increasing importance into supporting women innovators. So how really allocating a particular budget of the whole program for it, but by ensuring that when the evaluation process gets to the interview stage, because there are a few stages and the final one is an interview with a panel of judges, amongst those enterprises, those SMEs invited to pitch and to attend an interview with the jury, at least 40% of those interviewed should be businesses that have been founded by women or that have women in the top management. So either the CEO, the CFO, the chief technical officer, and so on and so forth of that particular applicant would be women. So when they are selecting from the very best ones evaluated, they will aim to have at least 40% of those going for the interviews, businesses that are women managed or women funded. And when the final decision for funding is being taken, the aim is to have at least 25% of those funded, those being given the grants, should be women-founded or women-managed small and medium-sized enterprises. So this is a program that if you are having a very innovative business and you are working on particularly innovative programs, go for it. Fine-tune your business case and really try to apply. Very interesting here, we are talking about 2-3 million euros of funding support, which would typically be 70% of the total need for money that this innovation has. And the rest of 30%, you would need to bring it either yourself, or it would need to be brought by other investors, financial investors. If you don't have them, you can actually ask the EIC to bring those investors on board themselves. And very interesting is the extent of indirect costs. I am mentioning here, but maybe we can just cover them a bit later on through your questions, because they might be a bit more technical. But the indirect cost rate here is 25%, which is quite a good rate that covers your general business expenses connected to that project. Now, besides this European Innovation Council Accelerator, there are a couple of other smaller programs that are coming up now. One of them is called EU Prize for Women Innovators. This is not completely new, has been for a few years now running, but now is getting more and more attention and visibility. And here, the financial support is being given in the form of a prize for women innovators, and there are 3 prizes of 100,000 euros. So if you can demonstrate a very innovative activity, product, service that you develop, you can apply and then you can win one of these prizes. Or there is also a 4th prize, which is for the rising innovator, for the younger generation, and here the prize is of 50,000 euros. The EU Prize for Women Innovators for this year, for 2021, closed, but it's very important to keep in mind that this is an annual contest. So keep it in mind for next year and apply for that. You have the link there. Another program of support for women entrepreneurs, particularly women entrepreneurs in the deep tech space, so in businesses that are very, technology driven. And this is currently still open. There are still applications ongoing up to 10th of November. Is a program, it's called womentech.eu. One of you earlier on Mentimeter mentioned it, very good. And 50 women-led tech startups will be selected to be funded with an initial support grant of 75,000 euros. It's not particularly, significant. It's not to the level of the EIC funding, the EIC Accelerator, but is still potentially very relevant in early stages or for additional support. And what is even more important is that this money will be complemented by other type of support, mentoring support, through a new dedicated program under the EIC, which is called the Women Leadership Program. Now, I cannot stress more the importance of these even smaller support programs, and particularly these linked to mentoring and general visibility. And this is because yesterday we were talking with Candice about the importance of us women entrepreneurs being visible out there and being also endorsed. And I think another one of you, I was speaking with Evangeline, I think, was mentioning how much she needs as an entrepreneur this kind of endorsements, public endorsements, and these kind of prizes, this kind of participation in mentorship programs give you that external validation of your idea, that kind of external backing, often backing from very relevant organizations like the EU, or the support and endorsement of very experienced mentors that are part of this mentoring pools. So go for them. Often it's not just money that are and directly immediate money that are important for this funding instrument, but also the kind of future funding opportunities, future financing that can be leveraged through the visibility that you can get through these smaller programs or smaller applications. Now, also under Horizon, there are these opportunities for Cascade funding. A bit earlier, I mentioned how EU grants are often given to bigger organizations, sometimes women support organizations or other, entrepreneurship support organizations. And they would need to devise a program of activities and including further financial support for the entrepreneurs in their cohorts, in their membership base, and so on and so forth. And basically, this kind of Cascade funding really comes in a mix of in-kind assistance, and that in-kind assistance is generally being provided through incubation, acceleration services, so business support assistance in the startup or scale-up phases. Or it could be also in-kind assistance by making available technology or testing facilities or laboratories that are available to either the support organizations or maybe to their partners, universities, research centers, and so on. So when they end up providing this support to entrepreneurs, they give a package generally of in-kind assistance and financial assistance. Here we talk about financial assistance that can range from 20,000 euros to 50,000 euros, 200 or 300,000 euros, for example, for a validation and demonstration of a technology, of a particular new product, service, and so on and so forth. At this link, following this link, you get a list of different opportunities of this kind of Cascade funding in different sectors. There are some, for example, for bio-based industries. Some would be for sustainability-related initiatives. Some might be for digital and digital technology-related, and so on and so forth. And besides this particular link, I want to definitely highlight a number of organizations that are particularly involved with this kind of Cascade funding. One of them is the European Institute for Innovation and Technology. I mentioned it a couple of times already. It's also that organization that I have worked for in the past. I continue working in different, expert roles for them. Basically, this European Institute for Innovation and Technology already funded 8 knowledge and innovation communities, they are called, on particular thematics. There is one that is, for example, EIT food. There is EIT health. There is EIT energy. There is EIT climate kick, climate knowledge and innovation community. There's another one focused on urban mobility. There are 8 in total. And each of these really has a range of programs that provide this kind of Cascade funding. So if you are, for example, having a business that is in the area of, let's say, sustainability or circular economy, then a community like the EIT Climate Kick can be very relevant for you, and it would be important to look into what kind of specific funding opportunities they have. If you have something that is in the area of medical technologies, pharma, life sciences, anything of this sort, there is EIT Health. So here again, there is an embedded link behind this image. Just click on it when you'll have the slides and follow through and see what opportunities they have. Now, they have on top of the whole setup, they have what they call hubs, representatives in different countries. And I know for sure that a number of them have, for example, in Croatia, they have in Bulgaria, 2 of the 8 have in Malta, for example. Climate Kick and urban mobility communities are represented in Malta. And hence in the countries that you can check what kind of presence they have. Those would be even more relevant because they are much closer to you, and they will have dedicated activities focused for enterprises from that particular countries. But nevertheless, also look at what they provide all across Europe, because most of the cases you can apply as long as you are from an EU member state or an accessing country. You can apply for those. Besides this, there are a few other organizations. They are called, for example, the European Data Incubator. If what you are doing is very much based on data, they have a number of funding support programs that blend, grant with in-kind assistance. There is Blockers. This is focused on blockchain. There is another one is called NGI. This is Next Generation Internet. A lot of these are focused on technology heavy businesses, because these are the ones that generally need the biggest amount of financial support, and hence they provide that. But don't forget that there are many others also that provide more general assistance, like for example these EIT communities that can provide, if you have a business in the area of food, if you have a business in the area of sustainable mobility, anything linked to climate or sustainability, those are for you. Now, before we go further into other financial instruments and the like, I propose now to take a 15 minutes break for a coffee, for a bit of stretching our legs, and then we'll see each other again until we go further. Maybe were there any comments, any questions along the way?
No, I would have told you. Have told you. It was just that people are interested in when will they be able to see the slides. So our organizers already answered that. So everything is under control. Don't worry.
Yes. I will be, after the training later in the afternoon, I will send the very final version, and then it can be further processed.
I think you can start now.
Okay, so let me share again my screen. Okay, good. So, up to now, we very much talked about the centralized sort of EU-wide disbursed, let's call it like this, provided funding, particularly the grant side of it. Now, particularly relevant is that, again, for the last 10 years or so, more and more focus has been placed on using EU money to enable private financial intermediaries to increase their investment and their financing in the economy. And this is happening very much through what is called financial instruments and financial intermediaries. So basically, there are really and truly, when you hear nowadays about Invest EU, this is a big umbrella program that works very much hand in hand with the European Investment Fund. And they have a number of smaller schemes that I would say be aware of them, but they are not necessarily something that you can go directly to them. But what they do is, from these schemes, they use EU money, and through the European Investment Fund, they actually give this money to, let me try to go to the next slide. How do I go? Okay. They give this money to financial intermediaries in all the member states and often also in the associated countries. And basically there is nowadays this big platform, it's called www.accesstofinance.eu. You have the link on top. And on this platform, you can really find all the different schemes that are really applicable in your country. So if I did a test, and as an example for you here, I went and I checked for Bulgaria. And basically you can replace this with, Malta, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Croatia, and so on. And you can also then take what kind of finance are you interested. Here we start talking about finance that is being distributed through others. So basically it would be either bank loans or bank guarantees, or equity or venture capital. So either something that is reimbursable, a loan, or otherwise an investment into your company. You can tick them both, what I've done. And basically this got me to 48 results for Bulgaria. This is just for Bulgaria, and you will be able to check for your specific country. And just as an example, basically what is under these 48 options. The National Guarantee Fund, EAD, in Bulgaria, with EU backing, is providing loans or guarantees. And basically these are coming from either the COSME program or the EFSI program, which are all those that earlier were under that roof, under that umbrella of what is called nowadays Invest in EU. For you, what is really most important are who are these culprits? Who are the ones that really can give funding in your country? So once you check on this platform, you will need obviously to contact them. And you can then check, we are aware, and you can tell them, I am aware that you are providing EU-backed financing for entrepreneurs, and it can be loans or other forms. And here you get the general information. So you will know if the investment is focused on a particular sector or another. You can find out if it is up to a certain level. So for example, Deutsche Leasing Bulgaria is providing also loans or guarantees up to 250,000 euros, so $250,000. And it's applicable to all sectors, particularly through leasing. So possibly leasing of equipment, of machinery, of vehicles, whatever else might be needed for your business. And it's through leasing. And leasing is a form of finance. It's a form of debt finance.
Anna Maria, we have a question.
Yes.
From Denis Attack. We checked frequently asked questions of Women Tech EU and are confused at one point. What should be the TRL for Women Tech EU? Should it be below TRL4?
Okay. We can address this now, but this is very much linked to a previous previous funding instrument that I mentioned earlier, and I wouldn't want to mix them up. But now that we are discussing it, let me address it. But then the rest, I would say maybe now with hindsight, I'm thinking to take the questions at the end. So this is about the Women in Tech, which is one of the schemes that I mentioned earlier under the Horizon Europe, European Innovation Council. Now, those technology readiness levels typically are about, how advanced you are in the development of your business. Now, what you have to say is the reality. So don't go about trying to fit yourself into a specific program or another, but try to make sure that you fit, because if you don't fit within their requirements, then you shouldn't waste your time applying for it. But don't say that you are somewhere where you are not. So generally, these kind of programs are focused on supporting either very early stage research and innovation, and that generally goes up to around TRL 4-5, meaning up to the moment when you start having a prototype, a proof of concept for what you want to develop, and you could maybe start seeing how it works in modeling on maybe on a computer or in a laboratory environment at a very, very small scale. And a number of programs go up to that level. Others, like for example the EIC Accelerator, typically would require a much higher level. So it would require at least that you are at level 5 or upwards, so 5 or 6. And that means you really have already this prototype in hand, you did some laboratory testing, so you are at least at that level, if not started also a bit more. So this is the approach. I'm not sure if I really answered exactly what was asked. Maybe the person can confirm or not. If not, and I'm not
Yes,
feeling...
you did.
Okay, excellent. Then I would just suggest that we will take the questions at the end, because there might be questions to previously covered topics. Okay, so coming back to these financial instruments being offered to enterprises through intermediaries in your countries, this website should be, and this platform should be, one of our first points of reference. Now, as you see here, there are a few others under the loan guarantee areas: United Bulgarian Bank, BDB Leasing, Raiffeisen, and so on, with different limits. You can see there are different limits and so on. Then there are also some options for equity and venture capital in Bulgaria, like Black Peak Southeast Europe Growth Equity Fund. This one is providing equity investments into companies in the expansion stage, and the amount is between 4 and 10 million. So obviously this would not be your first equity raising exercise, because you wouldn't be raising the very first time above 4 million, but it would be in the growth stage, and you should be aware of that, because these ones usually have better conditions. Whenever they are backed by EU money, there is less risk being taken from their end. That's the scope of this EU funding for financial intermediaries, to facilitate their investment appetite and their investment process. So contact them, because they will be more prime and more primed and better conditions to offer to you. Now, if we start now looking even a bit further beyond, the Horizon and a lot of the financial instruments that even from Horizon are being supported, there is, and I mentioned earlier, there is this program, and it's called Creative Europe. Now, generally, this program is very much focused on culture and the creative industry, and basically supports development of films, TV programs, games, or the distribution and promotion of this kind of films, programs, games, and so on at different film festivals and the like, or literally translations, or training for the professionals working in this sector. Now, I'm mentioning this because often, especially women-led businesses, many of them are in the creative space. So it is important to be aware that there are other particular programs that are focused on this sector and that have specific funding instruments and a lot of grants But not only, even from this program, a part of its budget is going for those financial instruments that we talked earlier. So you could find banks that actually devise schemes for the creative sector. I know that at least in Malta, there is a specific bank that is interested in this and is working and developing specific loan portfolios for this. So if you are in this area, if you are an entrepreneur in the creative space, if you are working on games development or on preparing TV programs and so on, or in the film sector, this is a very interesting program. Now, this particular program is also of interest to support organizations for entrepreneurs in the creative space. So if somehow your organization is focused on this particular category of entrepreneurs or would like to, this is a program that is very relevant to look towards, to develop maybe, a project that will be ultimately allowing you to provide training, to possibly provide sub-grants, for I don't know, maybe literary translations, for publishing houses and so on and so forth. Now, here, again, slightly more technical, and especially for your further reference, you will see that there are different co-financing rates, so the amount of EU funding that is being given pari passu, hand in hand with your contribution, and this is somewhere between 50 and 80%, so quite good levels, and an indirect cost rate of 7%. I will leave this for your further details. If you are specifically interested in it, you'll have it in the slide, or I can address questions afterwards. Now, another program very, very much of interest, and to a certain extent to both women entrepreneurs and the organization supporting them, is what is now called the Single Market Program. This very much comes from the previous COSME program, the ones that worked through it. The current WeGate project is funded under that program. So hopefully the new program can also support other similar projects or continuity of this kind of initiatives. Out of this program, one of the most relevant for women entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general is this Enterprise Europe network. I mentioned it a bit earlier to you. What they do is typically provide in-kind support. So they provide you services that otherwise you would need to pay for. Don't ignore this kind of financial support that is actually provided, in kind to you. You don't necessarily always need to get the money from somewhere else to pay and have this kind of transaction going on. If you find an organization that is really, experienced across Europe, has its, sort of expertise in all the different markets and can provide you services that are relevant to you for free, take that and use the financial resources for something else that is not available for free. So these kind of services, use them. This kind of in-kind support is part and parcel of the bigger, sort of category of funding opportunities. Now, what can you get from here? You get guidance, you get consultancy, you get training. And there is more and more focus being placed by Enterprise Europe Network on tailored consultancy to the needs of a specific enterprise that is really able to, for example, scale up internationally, that is able to grow, that is able to innovate. So really, contact them and explain to them exactly what you want to achieve and what kind of support do you need. And they do support in all these areas of growth, increasing your innovation, your international reach, the level of digitalization, and so on in your business. Besides this Enterprise Europe network, there are a number of other funding opportunities that are also relevant. There are particular programs under this Single Market program, which again is a bit of they are all a bit of umbrella programs, framework programs, which is focused, this sub-program is focused on clusters. So for example, some of you, I was hearing yesterday during the networking, some of you are part of clusters focused on, for example, on sustainability, others on circular economy. There could be health-focused clusters. There could be energy and green energy ones. There could be some focused on, I don't know, plastics, and so on and so forth. There are different clusters across Europe, and the scope is to help all those enterprises and different other support organizations around them to really, drive that particular sector. Now, there are programs that give particular support to the enterprises in these clusters or to the organization supporting them. One particularly in case is called cluster exchange. So it's supporting, for example, businesses involved in a particular cluster, I don't know, in plastics, is able to support them to get in touch with other organizations from other countries, to go and visit them and start building a collaboration to possibly get more sustainable materials to replace the plastic raw materials that they use right now, and hence transform their products into more sustainable ones, or get raw materials to develop more, recyclable materials for the future. Could be for packaging, could be for different other things. There are other programs and projects funded through this single market that are focused, for example, on tourism innovation and digitalization. So there are opportunities, for example, for companies, enterprises in the tourism sector. And there are these projects coming up that are going to support these companies in the tourism sector with small grants and possibly with in-kind support to possibly further innovate their product, further digitalize their operations. This is very much in the focus now post-COVID. There is a lot of focus being placed on getting the tourism sector up on its feet and being able to improve its operations and reaching to new customers. So it's under this program. Look for the tourism-related schemes and the projects that have been supported and are being supported. Co-financing rates here, and these are important, particularly if you want to apply as a support organization and put in place this kind of cluster development initiatives. And the funding is 40 to 75% co-financing of the EU. Another very interesting and less known program, and it's also part of the single market, is called the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs. I mentioned a bit earlier to you. This is another exchange program for entrepreneurs. It's similar to this one for clusters that I mentioned earlier. Actually, the clusters one learned from this Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, because this one is now in operation for about 11 years. I think it was in 2009 that really started. And basically, it supports entrepreneurs, not necessarily their business, but the entrepreneurs' founders. So, for example, women entrepreneurs now today in the audience could look into this program and benefit of a paid work visit and work stay with another more experienced entrepreneur in another country. So, for example, you are in Bulgaria, you are working in a particular sector, and you would really want to build up collaborations with I don't know, a Spanish or an Italian or a French organization, someone more in the West, to enter into those markets. Now, this is an opportunity. You can find another more established entrepreneur there, and you can go and work together with this other person, put your heads together of how you can help each other's business to grow and to internationalize and support each other. There have been already almost 10,000 such entrepreneurial exchanges across Europe through these programs. And there are almost double applications from the new entrepreneurs. So generally about 50% of the applications are being served. And 45 countries are involved. all these countries that at least I'm generally aware that you are coming from as audience are covered, because it's clearly not just the EU member states, but a lot of other associated countries to this program. Definitely the accessing countries, the neighborhood partnership countries, and and so on and so forth. It's a very interesting program and a very good one to really support your internationalization. It gives you some financial support for your stay, but the focus is to support you to really start building these international relations. And it actually funds your visit and your stay abroad. Another program, it's also called Erasmus, but it's Erasmus Plus, comes from another from another big EU funding, sort of pot. And this particular program is very much focused on supporting learning of students or staff. Now here, these students can be mature students. So women entrepreneurs as adult learners can be supported through this project. The project being funded under the Erasmus Plus. Now, generally and typically, this Erasmus Plus is not to be applied directly by women entrepreneurs, but to be applied for by the support organizations. And the support organizations devise projects that then would allow for, 30, 50, 100 women entrepreneurs to be again trained in particular skills that they need, supported to maybe have on-the-job training with other entrepreneurs, possibly complementing the other scheme, or covering certain areas that the other Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs does not cover. There are various other projects or type of projects supported here, especially linked to, for example, innovation and practice exchange. One in particular is focused on education and enterprises. So clearly the area of entrepreneurship, and particularly the still to be supported area of women entrepreneurship, can get a lot of support under this funding opportunity. Now, other programs that are typically to be applied for directly in your country. This is a bit like the financial instruments from the other platform that I mentioned to you earlier, but these are grants. And these come from that budget of EU money that is generally allocated to each and every member state. And here you would have a particular organization in your country in charge of this EU funding given to your country. Let's say Bulgaria, I keep sort of giving the Bulgarian example. And there are funding schemes developed, for example, under the ERDF. These would be typically funding a lot of investment into brick and mortar, into premises, into equipment, into things, into tangible assets. Then there would be initiatives that are also focused, for example, on the skills, and those would be funded from somewhere else. But very relevant for entrepreneurs is funding for something that they really need to invest in their business, generally to, buy a specific machine or equipment or different other things. There are also very specific programs focused on specific sectors. So, for example, if you are having an enterprise in the agricultural area or in the rural environment, possibly, to rural tourism or anything of that sort, there is a particular program, and the schemes and the funds are being allocated and disbursed at the national level for these businesses in the agriculture space, fishery space, aquaculture, rural development. I was going for the fisheries because there's this other separate program that is called the European Maritimes and Fisheries Fund, and that, it's linked to it, the one in orange on the screen. If you are in that space, you have, a fish growing farm or something, then that's the kind of program that can support you. And if you have an enterprise, a business, maybe an innovative technology or something, an innovative product that is maybe linked to the maritime sector at a larger scale, maybe something linked to maritime transportation or, maritime engineering, something for the ships or anything of that sort. There is also a specific program. This is at Brussels level, so it's building up on what is being distributed at the national level, and it's called the Blue Economy Window. And this is in a way a bit similar with what Horizon funds under the European Innovation Council Accelerator, but it's only focused on the maritime space. So if you have something in the maritime field, this is a much more, sort of focused program that you should look into. This program also has a very interesting coaching component, and it actually supports and assists entrepreneurs and businesses in the maritime space with getting ready to attract other type of investments. So there is a coaching component there. Now, what else? Because there are plenty, and that's why I really wanted to give you the overall view and the different names and links that you can really further check afterwards. There are these territorial cooperation programs. Now, these particular programs are on this side, they are very relevant to the support organizations. And this is because they generally support cross-border or transnational or interregional collaboration between different types of support organizations to improve how they assist the ones that they support, in this case, the women organizations. So there is the big Interact program that is working all across Europe. So if you want to collaborate, I don't know, a Bulgarian organization with a Norwegian or a Swedish or a Spanish, then the big Interact Europe program can be a very relevant program to get funding for your activities. If it's a cross-border collaboration, for example, like between Greece and Bulgaria, then there is another narrower sort of and more focused program that is supporting only collaborations between Greek and Bulgarian organizations. Or you want to have a project that is focused on the Mediterranean area, there's another sub-program here that is focused on that. Or there is another program which is about cross-border cooperation across the Med. So it's supporting organizations from the member states, from the EU member states, so up north from the Mediterranean Sea, with the ones in North Africa and the Middle East, like for example, Jordan, Palestine, Egypt, and these countries, organizations from these countries to develop, for example, women entrepreneurship and support for women entrepreneurship in these areas. Now,
Anna Maria,
yeah.
It's 11:40, so we have like 5 more circa minutes, maybe a little bit more. Do you think we can sort of wrap it up?
Yes. I'll be wrapping up. You will have some more details here in the slides. You can see, for example, regarding these national programs, I just wanted to give you here an example of different organizations in Malta that are providing support for enterprises only from Maltese funds. So similar organizations could be in your country, in Bulgaria, in Croatia, in Italy, in Spain, linked to arts, linked to science, linked to enterprise in general, and so on. Private funding, you will discuss some more in the afternoon about the private funding, but never forget the financial investors. And nowadays, you will have here more and more venture capital and business angel organizations focused only on investing in women. And you have on this slide a number of examples of venture capital funds focused on women. So contact them, look into exactly what kind of application process you need to follow. You have the names here, you have about 13 or 14. On top of this, keep in mind that a number of organizations have these corporate social responsibility programs, and some focus on entrepreneurship. more than half of the 50 largest companies in the US have them. Coca-Cola, for example, has them, and Coca-Cola has a presence in each and every of the countries. So knock at their doors and tell them, I know that you have, especially a support organization, I know you have a program of support for women entrepreneurship. Could we have your support, maybe a sponsorship or donation and so on? There's Walmart, there's Goldman Sachs and so on. And on top of it all, always keep in mind there is a rising power and the rising effort from women that would like to support other women. From the likes of Melinda Gates to the daughter of Buffett, Jennifer Buffett and the like, they have a number of philanthropic programs. Kaufman Foundation for Entrepreneurship is particularly important for support organizations for women entrepreneurs, but possibly even women entrepreneurs can look out to this. And this is where we are coming to the end of our presentation. My presentation and the opportunity now for you to have maybe some questions, comments. I would really like to hear any kind of experiences that you had with this kind of funding instrument and questions, clarifications you might need. I will stop sharing so that you see my face, I see your faces.
So we have a question from Mariana.
Yep.
Startups that are not yet legally established can benefit from this. We are in an incubator part of a university. Would that be a way?
There are programs that permit it. And for example, depends which ones. You will need to see if they permit or not, but I will not say that none of them allow it. So for example, Erasmus for young entrepreneurs, even if you don't have the company set up as yet, you can go because the support is for the entrepreneurs directly. There are also other programs that would say you can apply, and if you are being given funding, before we give you the funding, you need to set up the legal entity, the company. For example, the European Innovation Council Accelerator does that. So you could apply before you actually have the legal entity, and if they approve it for you, obviously you would know that you will be in the good hands now. You can set up the company at that point.
Okay. One question will arrive via email, but I'm still waiting. So because Dennis had to leave, so. Okay, so I will pass it on to you, Anna Maria, when I get it. Handcrafted toys fit in any program. Handcrafted toys.
Now, sometimes this kind of very specific thing, I would say handcrafted toys could fit under a lot of things, but they are definitely not, deep technology. So you don't even look at those kind of programs. You need to look at something that maybe is more on the creative sector side. Any kind of organizations that are supporting entrepreneurs from the creative sector, or organizations that maybe are focused on the sustainability aspect. So you cannot pinpoint yourself so narrowly. Of course, this is what you do, but what kind of sector or bigger sort of label would fit you? And probably for me, I would say you would be in the creative space or a creative enterprise or something educational tools for children. If it's handcrafted, it can be sustainability related.
Okay, let's move on. From Gabriela, funding for entrepreneurship, academic for SRL since 1917 is possible. A PhD thesis in innovative tourism, practical implementation, blending business with superior teaching. I guess, Gabriela, you are trying to share something with us. I'm not sure I understand this question. Could you please elaborate? Yasmin, are you allowed to hire technical staff from South Asia or USA staff, or only European citizen staff in technical fields?
Well, more and more, this depends on the labor market conditions and restrictions in your country. So as a legal entity, the legal entities that are being supported, those typically have to be Europe-based or based in the associated countries, so either in the EU or in the associated countries. Now, where your employees are based, that can be a bit more flexible, especially nowadays because of these remote work arrangements. So if under your national law, if you can actually, Bulgaria-based company, which is a European member state, if you can actually employ and your employees are actually based and they can work from South Asia, it wouldn't be an issue. They are your employees and they are on your books. So in principle, it's about what your national legislation allows. And one interesting thing is that particularly under this European Innovation Council Accelerator, up to 2020, only European-based companies or the ones that were in the member states participating in the program were allowed. Now they are actually encouraging applications, possibly also from entrepreneurs from other countries, from US or from China or from wherever else, as long as if they get funding support, they will be setting up their business in Europe and they will be growing this innovative business in Europe.
Okay. So Dennis has actually 3 questions, which are very specific. So I would suggest that you actually talk about it during networking session, because I'm sure that this is going to be more, a rich environment basically to you to address, because it's very, very specific related, to application template. Okay. So I suggest we take it at WonderMe. But I'm trying still to just understand Gabriela Martin. So, Gabriela, are you writing a PhD thesis in innovative tourism, and you are trying to find a fund, or I'm not sure. So, funding for entrepreneurship, academic for SRL since 1917 is possible. A PhD thesis in innovative tourism, practical implementation, blending business with superior teaching. So you are actually trying to find a fund for teaching, for your thesis, for what?
Let me give a more general reply to this. So
please.
When, we all have our background. And we generate professional background, and we generally look at building on that. So if you have a lot of work and a lot of research done in the area of tourism, I understood, then if you want to take it further and you want EU funding, you need to be very clear for what exactly do you want to do. So you have a lot of knowledge in that field, and probably you have publications and you had the PhD and other things. But at this point, what do you want the funding for? Do you want to really develop a new product, a new specific business model in the tourism sector? Do you want to set up, a cooperative? I'm just giving examples here. What exactly do you want to do with that knowledge? What do you want to build on that knowledge? This is the kind of information that you would need to put together into a project application for funding, because it needs to be very clear for what will the money be used. Salaries, buying equipment, and so on. For what? What is going to come at the end of it? Will it be a product? Will it be a service distributed and implemented? How? By whom? And so on and so forth. So your background and knowledge is very relevant, but only to the extent that you explain what exactly you are going to do with it.